At the end of a writing unit, many teachers presume that all students will submit a final draft that they wrote all by themselves. But I'd like us to rethink this. Just like we gradually release responsibility to students in instruction, what if we followed that same premise when assigning different writing products? When just learning a new genre or a type of writing, then maybe a more appropriate first writing assignment would be a whole class product. Rather than having all of the students struggle to generate their own piece of writing, what if the teacher stood at the board or the document camera and captured the students' thinking? They pool their ideas, they talk to each other, and they're really focused in on the content of the message. The teacher stands there and crafts their ideas. This allows students to put their energy into the trade of ideas and organization and not on spelling, capitalization, paragraph indents, and other grammar skills. I do believe this counts as a writing product. I think it's called oral writing because if students can't think it and say it, then they can't think it and write it. What a great first all-class product. After an oral writing assignment like that, I still wouldn't then rush to having all students create a final draft independently. What if the next task asks students to create a partial piece? For example, if it was a persuasive letter unit, then if students can't develop one persuasive reason, then they definitely can't develop 3 different reasons with an intro and a conclusion. Let's not rush to have students create entire writing products, but rather just a small portion. If it was a narrative writing unit, then maybe we just want them to develop the problem, not the beginning with the character and the setting, not the ending with the solution, but just the middle, the problem, the climax. If it was a how-to writing unit, and so far you've only taught them how to start that type of process writing, where you introduce the topic and tell the reader what ingredients or equipment they need to have on hand. What if then students just wrote that? For the teachers wondering, do you grade these partial pieces? Definitely. I want to get an assessment. I want to know what's sticking. What are the kids understanding? And what instruction do I need to tweak or refine? I also know that if I don't grade it, then they tend not to do it. However, the value of these partial pieces weighs much less than a final draft of an entire product. Throughout the year, as you're planning your different writing assignments, consider the size of the product, but also the level of independence your students are ready for. That oral writing task was executed as a whole class, but a partial piece could be done alone if they're ready. Maybe they need a little more support, like pairs generate a product, or even a small group. There will come a time when students are ready to generate a complete product, a beginning, middle, and end, but you think they need a little more support than developing it all from scratch. This is where I would use framed writing. Many teachers already use a frame, but don't realize it. For example, somebody wanted but so then is a very common frame for asking students to write a summary. The power of a frame is the teacher is indicating the type of information that must be included in the written product and the organization of that information. So using the somebody wanted but so then frame, students would complete it with their own ideas. For example, Cinderella wanted to attend the ball, but her stepmother wouldn't let her go. So she enlisted the help of her fairy godmother. It's then that Cinderella met Prince Charming. We could tell students how to write a summary and then ask them to, all by themselves with no support, write a summary. But I think we have to be prepared for some bad writing. What I like about a frame is it gives them that structural support without giving them any answers. If you think a frame will support your students, the next consideration is, are they going to generate it alone or do they need peer support? That's the big idea here. When you're progressing through a writing unit, you want to consider what students are ready for. It's not that they may need more instruction when they struggle in their writing. What they might need is more support. But over time, we do want to gradually release our students to be able to produce a complete first draft all by themselves. Take note that I believe a first draft could be a product and doesn't always have to produce a final draft. As a unit is progressing, consider how much time we spend in the classroom having students work through the writing process, revising, editing, and publishing. If we maximized our classroom time and had students do 2 or 3 first drafts only, they're going to gain more experience. I'm not saying a final draft isn't something to work toward, but in the real world, we do a lot more first draft only writing. Not to mention, that's what students have to do on standardized assessments. So remember, when planning the assignments to conclude a writing unit, you want to honor the developmental readiness your students are at. We want to scaffold their writing experiences to set them up to be successful. So consider what's an appropriate task for where they are.